E-L-O-E-J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world at breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody. Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Quintana Roo, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Master Spas, Hoka One One, Premium Plus Sports, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We've now raised $147 million, sent out 40,000 grants to athletes in 73 countries, all 50 states, and more importantly, in 104 different sports. Speaking of 104 different sports, that's a few less than Rebecca Rusch has done and been inducted into Hall of Fames for. She's 7-time world champion, mountain bike Hall of Fame 2019, gravel cycling Hall of Fame 2022, U.S. National Whitewater Rafting Team, Eco Challenge, Raid Gauloises, you name it, she has done it. Rebecca, how the heck are you?
Amazing. And you forgot the Endurance Sports Awards, one of
the most important.
Yep.
The Competitor Awards 2010 Mountain Biker of the Year. Hello.
That was
of course, I was
cool.
saving that because that's the most important part of this. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to see your face again and get to talk to you.
It's such a treat to reconnect. It's been a lot of years, and you've done some great stuff. Talk a little bit about Rebecca's Private Idaho, first of all, because I know that's such a passion play for you. And so many people are finding gravel for the first time through your
Well, and what's really fun is a bunch of triathletes are finding gravel. I just had a chat with Angela Nathan. That is she's doing gravel this year. She's riding gravel.
Heather Jackson.
Tons of triathletes are finding their way to the dirt, which I actually really love. But yeah, we're 10 years into Rebecca's Private Idaho. This is our 10-year anniversary. We talked about maybe we need a Breakfast with Bob gravel edition.
We might need to do that
there, which would be really cool. But yeah, 10-year anniversary. And near and dear to your heart, we've just partnered with Challenged Athlete Foundation this year as one of our partners and expanding the paracycling categories. We've got upright and recumbent now. And so I'm pretty excited about the growth of it. And I launched that gravel event 10 years ago for a few reasons. One, to support my local community, to show people a beautiful place. And, I've been a mountain biker for a long time, but gravel caught my attention because it's more people can come. It's more inclusive. Yeah. It's not as intimidating as mountain biking. You can ride almost any off-road bike, and a lot more people can just join in. And so it's been 10 years. We kind of were on the front end of before gravel was the new black, and we've grown. Yeah, now it's like everybody's doing gravel, which is cool. And it's always been a fundraising event. It's always given back to local, national, and global nonprofits that are doing cool things to get people moving. And part of my Be Good Foundation. And so it's coming up this September, and I'm pretty excited to celebrate. And yeah, it'd be super cool to do a gravel Breakfast with Bob gravel edition.
And it's Rebecca'sPrivateIdaho.com. That's where people can go.
Yeah, and it's a in-person event, but it's also, we're starting actually July 4th. We start an 8-week training program with my coach, and so we have a training community, and we also have what we call RPI remote, where we help people can on the same day still race with us in their community, and design a course that meets the elevation and the distance profile. And so we've got people competing. Last year we had 11 countries take part. So even if you can't come to Idaho, you can do RPI remote, you can come visit us, you can train with us. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about the expansion of it. And yeah, it's just Rebecca'sPrivateIdaho.com, and you're officially invited.
What I love about your background, Becca, you were going through. Now, where'd you grow up, first of all?
Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, me too.
You did?
Yes.
Which suburbs or city?
Suburbs. I went to New Trier, and up in Leadville, Mass. How about you?
I was Downers Grove North, and we competed against New Trier in track and cross country.
Yes, you did.
You always crushed us in track, but in cross country, we crushed you.
And our school was, and I wasn't part of it, but we had a great swimming heritage. They won like 17 state championships, something like that.
Awesome.
So that was running. Was that more your sport?
That was my first introduction to sport. It was cross country running and track, and that's where I first found, kind of the beauty of movement and exploring, and and I still run. It's kind of the easiest go-to if I'm traveling, or I live near a bunch of trails. But yeah, I'm mostly a cyclist now, but I run a lot. I paddle, I climb.
You've always done everything, and
except for swim. I'm terrible. I swim a little, but I'm not good at it.
Yeah. So, did you run in college as well?
I ran a couple years in college, and had kind of not a great experience with the coach there, being sort of abusive to the women's team in a way of like, we had to turn in food menus, and they're highlighting that we're eating too much, and so it kind of was not a positive environment for young girls growing up, with body image, and I mean, eating disorders are really prevalent in women's sports, especially running. And so I left the team because it wasn't positive. And that's where I first got a bike. I got a road bike my second 2 years of college, and joined a gym. I taught aerobics. I started getting in a weight room. And so I found some other sports kind of through that bad experience. It brought me into cycling and into some other strength and some other stuff.
And you were sort of on a career path, but there was a point where you decided, this is not me. I'm going to get my Bronco and just live and do what I want to do. Was that a tough decision because it's hard when people come up and say, well, where do you live? What do you do? And you're like, I don't really know. And I'm not quite sure.
Exactly. You're like, yeah, those are hard questions when you're kind of trying to find your way. And I think a lot of people, at that, post-college age, you're like, how are you supposed to know what you're going to do with your whole life?
Right.
And sports fueled me. And I had a marketing degree, but I was just kind of like, I'm not ready to commit to a career. Unlike my sister went into medicine, and she knew early on what she wanted to do, but not all of us have that real clear path. And I never have. So I had to just follow my heart. And so, I love sports. So I started working in health clubs and gyms and doing that. And that led me to rock climbing. And then I was like, you know what, I need to just rock climb for a while, because I was so passionate about being outside. And so, I left that job, and, became a dirt bag before it was cool to be a dirt bag, before it was cool to live out of your car. Like now it's like a posh thing to do, but in the 90s, it wasn't that cool. But you know what, like I didn't owe any money. I didn't need anything. So I'm like, what's the big deal if I thought it'd be like a year excursion, go on a little walkabout, go rock climbing. And that really ended up blossoming into what has become a, decades long athletic career.
Exactly. Well, you think about it, 90s, it's really sort of the era where, okay, it looks like triathlon's going to get into the Olympics for 2000. It looks like mountain biking's getting in for 1996. Raid Gauloises, all these sort of ultra endurance things are happening. Yeah. And did you already have an experience in whitewater, or did that come later?
No, that came later. When I left Chicago, so I lived out of my Bronco, I landed in California and started working in some outdoor stores and, rock climbing more, and like taking people bike packing. I became a bit of a guide, and I met a bunch of paddling women there who were on the outrigger canoe team. It was the Outrigger Canoe Club, and they invited me to join because my arms were kind of muscular from rock climbing, and they're like, oh, you might could be a good paddler. So they stuck me in the boat, and that's where I got into the water experience, which was amazing, living by the ocean and paddling, and the ocean kayaking and outrigger led to whitewater, just kind of one thing led to another.
What was your first, now as this stuff is growing, people are starting to make a few bucks. I remember Ned Overend and I were roommates back in the 80s. And
nice.
Oh yeah, we did Ironman together in 1980. but he was working at San Diego Suzuki. He wasn't, like make money as a mountain biker.
Yeah.
I remember when he signed with Specialized, it was like, oh my God, wait, you're going to make a living doing this. Maybe this is possible. When did you get to the point where you were actually starting to get some dollars from your passion, which was doing things outdoors?
I adventure raced for 10 years and, used my business degree, my marketing degree to kind of hustle sponsorships. And so we were getting some money for our team and doing really well, competing really well. But listen, the travel for a 4-person team and all the equipment and airfare, basically the money that we got was just a wash of like paying our way to get there. So I'm working side jobs and doing other things. And it really wasn't until post adventure racing where I got more into cycling that really the second half of my career launched some partnerships that actually could make a squeak out a living at, I mean, it's not like playing the NFL or, that kind of stuff, but to be able to pay for trips and put food on the table, that's been a pretty cool thing. I mean, I was just talking to somebody, I could have chosen a different career path where I would have made more money and it would have been a hell of a lot easier, but I wouldn't be rich in experience as I am now.
Exactly. And it's so funny because we've both been exposed to, you meet someone like a Mark Burnett during adventures, and then you turn on TV every week and it's like, there's Shark Tank, there's a Survivor, that's all Mark Burnett. It's, in knowing these people from way back and knowing, what made them tick and then seeing what they're doing, it's sort of been a pretty cool community to see
absolutely.
a lot of our folks are going. Adventure racing, it's one of those sports. I remember when at first with the Raid Gauloises and Eco Challenge, and there was some good dollars. I remember, what was it? The Primal Quest had $100K prize purse, and athletes were getting sponsorship. But at the same time, the one thing that always freaked me out about adventure racing is every race director was, I want my event to be the most brutal. It's going to go 8 days and we're going to, people are going to be this close to death. And there's a fine line between putting on something that's challenging and putting on something that's downright dangerous. And you saw both sides of that.
Yeah, and ultimately that was my transition out of adventure racing was twofold that you mentioned. We were at an event in the Pacific Northwest and a friend died right in front of us due to rockfall, and my teammate was injured, and Nigel was killed, and we all just went home from that. I went home saying, look, I don't do these sports to try to like risk death.
No.
And so I came home and had a real soul searching about why do I do sports? It's to build me up, not to break me down. And so I was pretty disheartened by that and pretty devastated by the experience. And at the same time, our main sponsor dried up. So all within the course of a month, I was like, okay, now what? Well, time to get a real job was basically, I thought it was the end of my sports career. And really it ended up being the beginning of the best part of my career. I went that year, I was kind of in mourning of like, well, what do I do now? And Red Bull was my remaining sponsor. And they just said, look, you've got a year left, just find something to do. And I looked for the longest possible things I could find. I looked at Ironman. I looked at ultra running because
Ironman was way too short for you.
I looked at ultra running. And so ultimately 24-hour mountain bike racing was the longest thing I could find. And that was still short compared to adventure races. Right. And the other caveat was like, I sucked at mountain biking really bad. Like I cannot emphasize it enough. But I tried it and I ended up, I'd run all the technical sections and I won my first 24-hour race and beat all the men. And that was with not riding the bike down the technical stuff.
You were smart. Well, so a three-time 24-hour solo mountain bike champion, 2007, 8, 9, 24 Hours of Moab, Leadville 100 winner, set the course record. I did a rod, go up to Alaska, freeze your butt off. That's always fun. So but what was nice is those events were, as that whole sort of, what we call them fringe, but there's dollars involved, sponsors
Yeah.
taking care of you. There good media came out of those events because they were so
Totally.
unique.
Yeah.
So
And at the same time, we were starting the internet and, social media and
yep,
all that was starting to happen. And so that was a time, where I was glad I was still in the game, because that's where I started to be able to make a career out of it. And yeah, it's been kind of cool. But social media and podcasts and all those things have really allowed a platform for athletes to be able to make a better living.
absolutely. And you obviously when you have a tragedy like you had on Primal Quest, but that rock didn't go far from you, right?
Oh
I mean, that
no,
went
it
right past your
passed
face.
eight people, 8 of us all in a line down one gully. And it could have, yeah, it went right by
It could
me.
have
It
killed
went,
you. You could
yeah,
have been killed right there on the
absolutely.
rock. Yeah. And I remember talking to Robin Benincasa when she came to Ironman after doing all the Eco
Mhm.
Challenge and all these different adventure raids around the world.
Yeah.
And she's like, there had been an earthquake on the Big Island. And so there was a crack that was about 6 inches wide across the Queen K Highway. And at the pre-race meeting, every athlete was like, how big is that crack? Am I gonna be able to get past that crack? She goes, I just came from doing an adventure race where I was on a rock and the rope was fraying on the
Yeah.
rock. Right. And I had no idea when this thing was going to be over, if the race director was going to show up at all.
Right.
That sometimes you get to a checkpoint and nobody's there for 3 days.
Right.
And these guys are worried about a crack across the road. I know within 11 hours, I'm going to be sitting with a drink with an umbrella in it, because you're going to hand me stuff every 5 miles. She was like looking at it going, this is so sane compared to the
It's
stuff that we
definitely
do.
perspective. Yeah. And I felt that way about 24-hour mountain bike racing. To Robin's point, I'm like, I'm going to be in a bed tomorrow night. Like, it's only
Yeah,
one day. Yeah.
right.
No big deal.
You're not out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
God. So when you first go to do an adventure race, and I'm sure over time things change, but first time, to me, the one aspect of that that's just not so much the scariest, but is the most daunting is the sleep deprivation aspect of it. Where you do weird stuff when you're not able to sleep, and you're making decisions when you're so fatigued. Was that scary for you?
Yeah. And we know a lot more now about sleep deprivation and what it does to the brain and your cognition and
Yeah,
your reaction time. And yeah, it's pretty terrifying. You're riding a mountain bike and falling asleep at the wheel, literally, and crashing because your brain is overriding what your body can do.
right.
So yeah, sleep deprivation is a big deal. And where I'm at now, I'm doing a lot of bike expeditions. So I'm doing long multi-day navigation, self-supported. So it's kind of like all my adventure racing skill has met my biking skills.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of doing these big bike adventures like the Iditarod. And I've changed my sleep sort of patterns from what we learned years ago. We were doing 7-day races with like 2 hours a night of sleep. And now I'm kind of minimum 4, just to maintain that cognition. And it's still not good for you. I know Ian Adamson said at one point, he's like, I think you lose years of your life doing an adventure race because
No
of the
question.
sleep deprivation.
Yeah. No, during COVID, I've become an 8-hour a night guy. And I find
Absolutely.
it really makes a difference. So I watched your TED talk on your dad, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but the thing that hit me, you lost your father when you were 3 years old. So you really didn't know him. You knew that on March 7th, 1972, a mission over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, he was shot down, obviously died. And you had done you were in an adventure race in Vietnam. And there was a connection there that led you to come back, right? You felt like you needed to come back to really sort of, I don't know if it's closure is a term, but just to get closer to your father. What drove you?
Yeah, it was more a curiosity. And you're right, that adventure race in Vietnam I think it was 2003.
Yeah.
And after the race, and I remember that was the first time I'd spent time in the country. And we're wallowing around in the mud, we're getting heat rash. It was the first time I felt like, is this what the soldiers went through? This kind of really hard terrain. And of course, we're not being shot at. we're not fearing for our lives, but we're really living in the mud, in the dirt, in the heat. And that was kind of made me think a lot about the soldiers and the people who were on the ground. And after that trip, my mom came over and we did a tour of Da Nang Air Force Base, where my dad was. We went to the DMZ, the border between North and South. We went to some areas and did like a history tour with a guide.
Yeah.
And I remember standing on this one hill in Vietnam, and our guide pointed across, to this, to the other side across to Laos. He said, "That's Laos. There's the border right there. The Ho Chi Minh Trail is right over there." And something sparked in me. I took a picture, and I was just had this curiosity of like, I'm going to go there someday. And this was 2003. 10 years later, I had the idea to ride the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I wasn't a cyclist in 2003.
Right.
So I had this idea 10 years later. Again, Red Bull's like, what do you want to do that nobody's done? And I started thinking and thinking and thinking of things. And I was like, God, I wonder if anyone's ridden the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And so it started a curiosity of wanting to learn about the conflict, wanting to learn about my dad, asking questions of my mom that I'd never asked. And I put together an expedition, pitched it to Red Bull. It got turned down 3 times. And on the 3rd time, they kept saying, go back, do more research, get more information, write a better pitch,
Right.
And eventually it stuck. And I was able to, with their help, go do the ride in 2015 and film it. That's the film Blood Road.
Emmy Award winning, by the way.
It is. And it was a life-changing journey, to take my sport and my career to do something far more important, connect with my dad. I found a piece of myself. And to your point, it wasn't closure. And everyone says, oh, it must have been closure. It was the exact opposite. It was like this opening of like, I'm getting to know this person now through the people in Vietnam, through stories, through being on the ground, standing in the place where he died. So it was a total opening and a celebration for me of getting to know the guy and getting to understand what everyone went through during that conflict. And it was a very healing journey for me. And I rode with a Vietnamese woman her father also served on the other side.
Yes.
And it was just showed you how bikes heal and how people moving together, spending time together, moving through nature, and we didn't speak the same language, but we definitely connected on a pretty deep level.
Also the resourcefulness of the Vietnamese people. You were talking about how the U.S. dropped plane loads of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. And so when you're riding through, you're seeing planters made out of bomb casings and people in the big every piece of metal that was dropped, they've made use of. The
resilience, the resourcefulness, the forgiveness. Can you imagine if your home was bombed for 9 years and then 45 years later, the descendant of somebody who was bombing your own town wanted to come and check it out and come into your house, and would you open your arms to them? Maybe not, and to learn that the bombs haven't exploded and there's still bombs killing people from a war that ended 50 years ago. So that was a big part of me launching the Be Good Foundation in my dad's name, and doing more. So I did personally connect with him, but I came away going, I can use my platform for some bigger stuff, which has been really fun.
That marketing degree you got years and years ago, you didn't know how it was going to get used, but it's been used your whole career.
Totally.
Right? And that's the great thing is what's happened with social media and with the fact that we can go out and we don't have to go through a news resource to talk to people. Turn on your phone and talk to people and talk to a lot of them all at the same time.
There's a lot of freedom in technology. Of course, it gets misused in many ways, but it's also a great trajectory. And you probably are one of the first podcasters before podcasting was cool.
Created a radio show in 1990.
Right.
Because I felt like, hey, wait a second. If we were at a show on a sports radio station and people would hear an interview with a Rebecca Rusch or a Mark Allen or a Paul Newby Frazier after hearing Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, they would think our sports are cool. They would think our athletes are important.
Totally.
And so that was sort of it. So it wasn't just trying to just grow Competitor Magazine. We're all trying to grow an industry. We're all trying to grow mountain biking and solo racing and everything that was out there.
You know what's cool? You mentioned Paula Newby Fraser. I remember her dabbling adventure racing and me giving her some tips. One year she went to a race
Mild
in
7.
China. Yeah, the Mild 7. And she was asking me for some info. And now it's kind of fun to see triathletes coming into gravel too. I love it.
What I loved about the Endurance Awards is there's Taylor Finney, there's Greg LeMond, there's Connie Carpenter, there's all these athletes from different worlds, right?
Totally.
Mountain biking, and then also we had our challenge athletes there. But I think you knew, if Paul Newby Fraser was there, that basically if she's the best in triathlon and I'm the best in my sport, that we both suffer for a living.
Yeah.
Right. We know that you don't get to the top without doing the hard yards. Yeah. And so there was sort of like a sorority and a fraternity of pain in that room because people all knew you can't fake it. If you're at the top, you have suffered in some way, shape, or form to get there.
Yeah, you have the kind of the nod of like, oh, I know what you've been through, even though it's a different sport. Yeah.
Totally different, but you're still doing intervals. You're still doing the climbing. You're still doing the high heart rate. You're all doing the same stuff. It's so fun.
So
I love the fact
our endurance sports awards. What happened to them?
I sold Competitor back in 2008, and we became the Competitor group.
Yeah,
and we had the endurance awards until we sold again in 2012. I think they closed them down not long after that. I miss it. I think I got to bring it back.
I was just gonna say, could we bring it back?
Absolutely. Just figuring out when. We got a lot going on with
CAF. No kidding.
And you'll love it. We'll be up in Boise on July 26th. We're showing our documentary on a young man who's a quadruple amputee baseball player, missing both hands, both legs. I'll send you the trailer. You will love it.
And there's a new field house being built in Boise.
There is.
I'm really excited to check it out.
Yeah. It's and we've gotten way into winter sports. We're doing all sorts of really cool stuff. Like I said, 104 different sports. We sent out grants over 29 years. So it's been great. I can't wait to see Rebecca's Private Idaho. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. I'm excited about expanding with CAF and hopefully going to the field house in Boise. It's just a couple hours for me. And being part of helping some athletes there because it's right near the dirt road. It's right near the gravel roads.
Yes.
In Boise. So you can roll right from the field house onto the dirt.
Yeah, and you've got, so for Rebecca's Private Idaho, 4 days, 3 stages is a queen stage. Then you've got the 102 miler is the baked potato, the 56 miles of French fry. And then something that I possibly could do is a 20-mile tater tots, maybe.
I think you could do the tater tot. I bet you could do
the tater tot. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Rebecca, thanks so much for taking so much time. It's such a treat to get to chat with you and
I look
reconnect.
forward to riding a bike with you or a run or doing something in person together.
I'd love it. Nothing better. Rebecca Rusch has been our guest, a true legend. When I just look at adventure, it's like adventure racing was designed for you.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Mountain biking, climbing, all the stuff that you were already doing. It's like, that sounds perfect.
It was cool. And like I said, it's been a fun trajectory to go exploring on my bike and take that kind of adventure racing aspect onto the bicycle. And a lot of people are finding what they're calling bike packing, right. and they're going longer distances, overnighters on the bike. So that's a pretty cool way to explore.
Love it. Rebecca, hopefully we'll see you in late August, early September.
I'd love it. Thanks, Bob.
Rebecca Rusch has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. Rebecca Rusch has been our guest. Thank you so much, legend.
Thanks. Be good.
Take care. Bye.